Hello, my friends. Katie Day with the Moving to Texas team here in Houston, Texas. Today we are live with one of the #1 teams in Houston and the queen of Katie, Jamie McMartin. What's going on? How are you?
I'm good. I'm not sure how that name happened, actually.
We can cut that out, or maybe not. We'll see. We'll see what happens
Okay.
post production editing.
Yes.
I have a feeling it's probably not going to get cut out. So
Gotcha.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yeah. Anyways, how are you? What's going on?
Oh, all good. Hanging out, living in Houston, putting up with all this heat that we're dealing with, and running the team. So
Yeah. When we got here, I had some trouble with the lockbox, and we were standing outside in the heat. I was like, "You can just go sit in your car. I'll deal with this on my own." She stuck through with me. So
Yes.
True friend is what that is. All right. So for people that may not know you, how did you get into real estate?
I got into real estate in 2006, and kind of like everybody else, wanted that flexible schedule that everybody talks about. That's not really happening. And I also thought, when I was looking for something to do, because I had just switched over from management with restaurants.
Okay.
I wanted something where there wasn't a ceiling.
Yeah.
And I had a friend of mine actually in Chicago. I was watching her daughter. Actually, we had kids that were the same age, and she was a real estate agent. And I was kind of in awe of her, and we talked quite a bit about it. And when I moved back to Texas, I was like, I'm going to do this. So went to school, got my license for it, and started in 2006.
Well, and so you probably thought things were like flying high then.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea what I didn't know.
Yeah.
My husband was in mortgage, and so we got here, didn't know a soul, by the way, in Houston. And so I just put my head down and started working.
And then a couple of years later,
I realized it's a really bad market, actually.
Yeah.
But at the time, looking back at it, I had no idea it was a bad market. I really was just taking everything that people were telling me to do and not listening to all the noise and putting my head down and actually doing the work.
Well, and so I know, when we've talked before and just knowing each other for a few years, that like you did a lot of open houses, right, back then?
Yep.
What are some other things outside of that? Was that your main source of business in the beginning?
Actually, it was, and I'm not really sure where I got the idea from, to be honest. I've thought about it, but I did open houses 9 to 5, literally Monday through Sunday. And I still have, I had this little thing that I put on the door if I wanted to go take a break or a quick walk, just to get some air. But I still have this little dial clock that I use to this day, and that's what I did. Just did open houses literally for 6 months. And honestly, I still have a lot of those people still in my contacts.
Well, and so just out of curiosity, because normally when we see open houses, it's like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If it's new construction, maybe there's weekday open houses as well. Like, were you doing these at new construction? Were you doing them at like your seller's list, or like were you finding listings? Because you probably didn't have them, right? So where were you finding these?
So I actually found some agents in my office that needed some open houses done, and that's what I would do. And most of them were vacant. That way I could sit there all day and not worry about it. And the other thing that we did, or I did, was went to builders. And so, sometimes builders have days off and they don't necessarily have anybody watching the community while they're off. And so I would do them at builders as well.
And so 9 to 6, I mean, what did you do? Like, because clearly people aren't coming in droves for 8 hours of the day or 9 hours or however hours that is. So what would you do in the meantime?
Yeah, I considered that my office time.
Yeah.
So I would work the whole entire time on either calling people that I didn't know, calling people that I just met, following up, probably calling people and reaching out too often, to be honest. But that's what I did, was just sit there and on the phone calling people. Anybody that I met, they went into my database, and I would just touch base and see if they needed anything.
Yeah. Well, and so one of the things that Ryan, my husband, always says is he's like, I will just be so happy if sometimes someone calls me and says, hey, this agent on your team is calling me too much.
Yes.
No one ever does, right?
No
like
one
it just
does,
they're gonna ignore your call,
Yeah.
and then at some point you'll be there at the right time and they'll take it and you'll actually be able to help them. But that's epic, right? As far as open houses go, it's most people are like, oh, I did one open house on a Saturday, no one came in, so I'm never going to do them again.
Right.
And I think that treating it as your office time is important, and having something to do while you're there, right? Hey, these are the follow-ups I'm going to do. These are the leads I'm going to call. This is the
or the letters that you're going to write, whatever.
Yeah. Were you writing many letters?
I was actually at the time. That's 2006, right?
Oh, all right. My mistake.
Back in the day.
No, I'm still a fan of direct mail today, so
Yeah.
we can get into that later. But treating it as your office time, I think, is a key point there, right? And just continuing to do it and knowing that, like, hey, I'm just this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about like not knowing anyone when you moved here. What did you do to try to get either involved in the community, or like was it just like I'm doing open houses?
I did a lot of open houses. That was my number one. But number two, I did a lot in my actual neighborhood.
Okay.
Now when we moved here, we actually bought our very first house here in Katy, and so it was really great. It was a brand new community. Right outside of Cinco Ranch. And so I just made that my place. Everybody that knew me knew that I bought and sold real estate. Every month I would knock on doors, offer something of value, whether it be talking about, cleaning your home or home warranties or just the market in general. But every month I would do that. My little guy would go with me. Sometimes I'd bring the dog. And then we also orchestrated little parties throughout the community so that everybody just thought of me anytime they needed something with real estate. So that was a big thing for me as well.
Well, and just kind of being fearless and going all in on being the person and being the connector and just being the person that people think of.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought was interesting, and I tell a lot of my agents now because a lot of them have younger kids, but my little guy at the time was really into football, right? And so I literally would go to games in my work clothes because I was going to an open house or something like that. I'd have my name tag on.
You actually probably were at an open house for the amount of open houses you were doing.
Right. And so I would just pop in all dressed so people knew I meant business, even though necessarily I wasn't helping a client at that particular moment. I never went home to change. I always was dressed all the time with my name tag, and everybody knew that I was coming from work, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, I think looking back at it, like volunteering and doing those kind of little things really got my name out there with people in our community.
Well, and it's like, you're like coming from work, right?
Yeah.
So like for you were saying, hey, I'm doing this from 9 to 6. This is my career. I'm going to the office. It might have been a vacant house, right?
That's right.
But like you treated it like it was a job. And I think a lot of agents today get in and they want that flexible schedule. You said that kind of with a laugh earlier. I work way more now than I ever did before, right? Like you're working basically 7 days a week, but you are able to leave early or do things, that you couldn't do with a 9 to 5 job.
That's right.
W-2 boss sitting over your shoulder.
That's right.
Okay, so how long were you an individual agent before you started your team? Because I've only known you as having this kick-ass team, right?
Well, so my second son was born in 2013.
Okay.
And so this is pretty much how it all started. I remember, and it's not the best story ever, right? It's kind of embarrassing, but it is a pivotal moment. I remember driving to the hospital. Actually, Nate was driving us, and I was going.
Good for Nate. Yeah, thank you.
I was going to have the baby, right? And one of my deals, and I remember the exact house, was falling apart. And so it was like 3 days before closing. It was a terrible fall apart moment. And I remember going and telling the other agent, my client, hey, I've got another appointment real quick, so give me a couple of hours. I know. And I will call you guys back, and we'll figure out the solution. So I go in, have the baby. I remember coming out of having the baby, going into the room, and then finishing up the deal. So not my proudest moment, but it was a moment. And then I remember coming home, taking care of this little guy, and I've already got my 10-year-old at this point. People calling me, going to an appointment about a week after, having the baby. And I was like, I just can't keep doing this. This isn't fair to the little guy.
Yeah.
And so I decided at that point I needed help. And that's when I started building the team.
Well, and so at that point, was Nate still in mortgage, or was he an agent at this time?
He was still in mortgages. Okay. He kind of was the first one that would do all the stuff for me, like taking something to a client or putting up a sign or those kind of things. But it wasn't
an official thing. It was just, hey, I'm your husband helping you out kind of thing.
Yeah, I need some help, So interestingly enough, I have a really good friend of mine who lived down the street. And I'm like, I think you would be great at real estate. Can you go get your license? At first I said, can you be my assistant? And then I was like, no, go get your license. So she got her license. Her name is Shannon. She's still with us today. Love her to death. But she's a hustler. She got her license, and she helped me with all the overflow. So she was my first hire.
So you wanted her to be your assistant. You had her get her license. What was kind of, other than just doing, was she just the catch-all and did everything at that time?
Yeah, she did the buyer agent stuff basically. So I was still doing all my paperwork, doing about 100 deals a year, doing all my paperwork still. I don't know how I did that now, but at the time we were just...
You just did it.
Just did
what it was.
Just did it, yeah.
I was recently on a mastermind, and it was talking about team building. I'm like, what's your first hire? Tell us about your first hire. I was like, no, I'm going to tell you all what you should do.
Yes.
Because it's not what I did.
Exactly.
Right? Like I hired the agent. I'm like, oh, you have a license? You can do things.
Yeah.
Right? So if you could do it all over again, obviously I think things happened in the way that it should, and clearly Shannon's still with you, and she's amazing, and
Yeah.
you've built an amazing team, right? But if you could do everything over again, who would be your first hire?
Probably an assistant that could do the transaction work for us, help build our business with clients. At that time, we were just going, right? There wasn't a lot of building. And so in hindsight, that would be what I would do first. Funny enough, a couple of years later, and I had maybe 2 or 3 people in between, but a couple of years later, I met Jen. Jen was actually a client of ours also. We were sitting at the closing table, and I said, hey, by the way, if you know anybody, I'm looking for an assistant. And she said, well, okay. And she was a school teacher. So a couple of days later, she calls me and she says, what about me? And I'm like, well, you're a teacher. And she said, no, I think I want to change. And I said, okay, great. So of course, she's been with us ever since, but she's been a pivotal point in our business as well. And really what she did was started following me around and just writing down everything I did. And that should have been my first hire.
Well, and so, I mean, she's scaled with the company as well, right? And so I remember, when she was like, oh, I'm just kind of doing a few deals and I'm the assistant and I'm at this and I'm at that. And now, I mean, she's such a key person, in your organization. And so how do you, I guess, identify when people have more in them? Does that make sense? Because sometimes I feel as if, you hire someone and it's a, whatever role it is, and like you want them to do more, but like maybe they don't necessarily want that. So how do you identify like the key people in your organization that have grown with you over time?
Yeah, I look for passion. And it's not necessarily passion for work, but it's just passion for life in general. Typically, because I get very excited, I'm fast moving. And if you can match and share in that passion, I think it's a great fit for us at least. So that's what I look for, is just passion in life.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like for Jen specifically, just since I know her, one of the things that I always really appreciated about her was that whenever she spoke about things, it wasn't like, oh, this is Jamie's business.
Oh, for sure.
She was like, well, we do this, or our business is. And it was like, I don't know when I met her, 6 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, about
5 years ago. Like, I don't know what her role was then, but she had so much ownership in just her language. And I think that's probably in part from you giving her ownership, right? But like, that's also, I think, people have that in them, that they want to have more and things like that.
Yeah, they believe, right?
Yeah.
They believe and believe in what they're doing, so.
Yeah. Okay, so how many agents do you have on your team right now, ballpark?
30.
30-ish, okay. We were talking about this earlier, we both, coach in Tom Ferry, and they've always said like there's a messy middle of teams and team sizes. And it used to be kind of like the 20 to 30, and they were like 50 is when it really gets easier,
That's right?
We were joking around that they're like, oh yeah, now it's 100, just double it, it's fine. As you're hiring agents, and I assume you're probably still in hiring mode.
Always.
One, why always?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, I don't want to miss anybody. I don't want to miss giving somebody an opportunity or helping them help me and me helping them. I don't want to miss that great person for not hiring. And two, it's just part of the growth. Like, it's just part of growth. And I am a strong believer in onward and upward and growing. And so I just never want to stop that part of it.
I lost the train of thought on my first question, but I really like that. I think it is important to always, kind of have your ears open and eyes open, right? Because people, it may be on the other side of a deal, it may be someone that actually applies for a position, or whatever it may be, always being open to that, and kind of having that, like bench is what they say, continually to putting people on the bench and things like that. Oh, I remember what my original question was, but your response took me off my track. So my original question on that was like, you're scaling your team, you're hiring, you're always hiring. What are the key things that you look for in an agent as you're growing your team? Because I think in the beginning, a lot of people are just like, kind of like you did. You're like, I like you, so you should get your license and we should do this together, right? And I'm sure now that's not how your hiring process works, because there'd be a lot of turnover.
That's right. Well, we've had a lot of growing pains, and recruiting has been something that we've really focused in on the last 2 years, honestly. And we actually created an avatar of what we're looking for. So for us, it's really important that you have to fit into what works best with our company.
Yeah.
For example, one of the things is we change and grow a lot. We're constantly pivoting with the market, you know. And so if you're not a person that can change and kind of bob and weave, we're probably not the right team for you.
how do you know that? Because like if you interview me, I'm going to tell you that I'm I love change, I love fast-paced work environments, but like how can you really dig in on someone to know if that's something they can do?
I think it's the list of questions that we ask. So we've got a certain list of questions that we talk about, and then it goes from our recruiter we have this list, and then it goes to Jen, and she's got a whole nother list based on our avatar. But I think creating your avatar of what you really want is key to hiring, because otherwise you just hire. And let's be honest, some people interview very well, right?
Yeah.
Like
most people do.
Yeah, they get in the interview, they do a super job, and they come and you're like, okay, wait.
This isn't what you said.
This isn't what you said you want, but yeah. So.
All right, so you have an avatar. The other thing that I'm hearing you say is multiple interviews, right? So it's not just, and I think we all did this in the beginning. We have coffee, and then we're like, all right, so you're in, you're in, I'm in. Let's do this, And so having those multiple interviews and having some screening processes. I talked to someone the other day that they actually have essay questions, and so they send them an email. It's like a Google form, and they're like, hey, fill out these 4 things. And it's not necessarily like for are they getting these answers right or wrong. It's more so for like, can they form a sentence? Are they capitalizing letters? Are they professional in their speak? Because some people, you even get emails back from them. You're like, oh, this was a mistake.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. Actually,
So that's another layer. And I'm like, well, at that point, I'm like, we already have multiple interviews. I'm like, we might not hire anyone. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But, okay, so teams, as far as kind of leads and lead pillars now, what do you all focus in on? Is the team still doing a lot of open houses?
Oh yeah, we've really actually, when the market shifted a little bit this year, just a little bit, right? When it shifted a little bit, we really went back to focusing on open houses, because during COVID, I think people got out of practice a little bit with that. We had a different market. People are just shooting offers. Buyers are not very loyal. They're just coming and going.
Yeah.
But for us, open houses have been a really big lead pillar. So we redid and revamped all of our material and just kind of made it more up to date. So that's definitely been a focus this year.
And then you guys do online leads, right?
We do online leads. We're really focusing though on people touching base with their database, SOI, past leads. I know you know this, but most leads don't turn into anything until that 3 to 6 month period, right? And so agents, especially during COVID, got really used to trying to get the people at the very beginning, when really you've got such a gold mine in your database if you could really focus on these people that are at that 3 to 6 month period. So that's been a big focus as well.
Well, and so I think people get concerned, right, we'll focus in on the database of leads, right? So you have these leads and man, I talked to you, we had a really good conversation, and then I dropped the ball and we haven't talked in 3 or 6 months, right? But we know that's the prime time to be calling them. What advice would you give me? Would you say
exactly what you just said? Hey, did I drop the ball?
Yeah.
Where are you in your search?
Yeah.
Let's pick this right back up and let's get going. Because I think everybody's human. A lot of people start that search really, really early. And they're still clicking at night. They're still looking during the day. And so a lot of it's about timing and you being in that right spot. So I don't think there's anything wrong with, hey, I dropped the ball. Where are we at?
I've already bought a house with someone else.
Yeah. That's okay. Next time.
Yeah. You should have called them, 60 days ago.
That's right.
All right, and then as far, y'all have sold a ton of homes, right? You personally and the team. So what do you guys do as far as past clients and things like that?
This year we've really focused also on automation. So right now our big focus is our database, and including past clients. So we've got a new program that we're rolling out where we're touching base with clients at that 30-day after they close, 60-day, kind of like a warranty almost, where we're keeping track and just making sure that we're adding that value to the client every single time. So we have some systems on the back end that are helping us with that. And then we also use our CRM to kind of tag the agent when it's time for them to reach back out so they don't forget as well.
Yeah.
Because that's the key is getting the agent more involved. But the agents are busy. They've got all these other new leads coming in, and it's really hard to kind of keep track of those past clients.
Well, and I think we've seen, especially, if we rewind back to 2020, right? We were just calling people to make sure everything was okay, right? We were out and about selling real estate. Do you need us to pick anything up for you? Are you good? Are you working? Is all is well? Yes, kind of thing. And the amount of referrals that we got from those conversations where we weren't trying to sell real estate, we were literally just checking in on people. then we kind of lost it in 2021 and 2022, and that's
Yeah.
something that we've really been focusing in on as well.
Yep.
Is, you know, one, like home values have increased, but two, just like actually just having conversations with
That's
people.
right. I think it's interesting. We talk about this at the office a lot, especially agents that started in 2021, 22.
Yeah.
They don't know how to do that. They don't know that it's needed, right?
Yeah.
And so for people like us who've been in the business a while, we're having to go back to the tactics that we used that got us to where we are. But there's that pocket where people just forgot how to talk to people. It was more of a transactional deal instead of like building that relationship. So that's very much been a focus on, I think it should be a focus really for everybody, is making sure that you switch that mindset.
Well, and so the market is down, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, individual people may not be, or teams may not be, or things like that. But like when you look at how many homes were sold last year, how much volume was sold last year versus this year, you know, the market is down pretty much in every market across the country right now, right? And so I wouldn't equate it to 2008 or something like that. But like, what mindset hacks do you have, or what things, you know, are you doing personally, or what advice would you have for an agent in today's market that's just like, I'm not sure if real estate is for me right now?
Yeah, I think for me personally, mindset's a huge thing. And I think it's always been a huge thing in real estate because you're self-employed, you know, basically. So you have to make sure that your mind is strong so that you can move forward. For our team, for example, we're doing gratitudes every morning. So we've got a sheet that they fill out. They do gratitudes. We write down or text somebody something nice every morning, and then we also make our phone calls. So that's something that we're doing as a team. And as for me personally, I'm doing the same thing, reading, working out, you know, love working out early in the morning, doing my gratitudes.
Y'all also do a lot of competitions, yes?
Yes, yeah.
Is that
We've actually
something?
got one with Jill Biggs now.
Yeah. I was like, I feel like I'd seen something that you guys. So I know
It's a
y'all
lot of
do
fun.
team competitions, but then I loved picking a team across the country, you know, and kind of because it gets everyone fired up. I don't know about you, but like a lot of the agents on our team are competitive, right? So if we do a sales comp like just with our team, there's definitely some competition. But then when it's like we're all going against Jill.
Well, they think that we're so sweet, right? Because like her little message was "bless your heart," you know, because of the Southern thing. And I'm like, oh, don't let that fool you, Jill, you know. But we get to see it, so it's kind of nice because it's very transparent. We share a Google Doc, so we can see each other's productions the whole time. So that's been fun because then we can check in with our team and say, okay, look, they're catching us, you know. But we are winning by a landslide right now.
Oh. A landslide. When does the competition end?
Right before Thanksgiving.
Okay, so this will air before Thanksgiving. So Jill Biggs, I'll have to figure out what the timestamp is right now to send to her to be like, hey, Jamie was talking trash about you.
Always.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, Jill. Gonna sell some more Jersey homes up there, or, you know, condos or whatever they are. Well, clearly you're not competitive at all.
I know, right? Neither is Jill.
Okay, so mindset, working out, gratitudes, you know, saying things that you're grateful for to other people, you know, and kind of spreading that same feeling around, all really good things. Do you have anything that you said reading, like do you have any books that you'd recommend to agents to read as far as like skills and mindset type stuff?
I don't know any off the top of my head, to be honest. Right now I'm reading the Elon Musk one.
Okay.
So that one's been pretty cool to read, but nothing, I can't think of one off the top of my head right now.
All good.
Yeah.
How's the Elon Musk one?
It's actually pretty good.
Did it come with your Tesla?
No, no, but it's been fun.
Okay.
So she's been very helpful, actually.
Is that like vision planning and stuff?
Yeah, vision planning and making in my mindset. And it's hard, you know, especially when you're responsible for 40 people, for example, making sure that I'm making the right decisions and making sure that I'm good, really.
That's cool.
Yeah,
how long have you been doing that for?
Beginning of the year.
Okay, so like almost the entire year now.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
We
talk once a week.
I feel like that's too many feelings for me, and you know, I just like to keep my head down.
I know.
I feel like you're the same way, though.
Well, I know, but now I'm not keeping my head down.
Yeah.
Present in the moment.
Oh yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that was always my saying: is I'm keeping my head down, just go. Yeah. Instead of like feeling the feels, being in the moment. So it's been a very different year.
Well, so I mean, I told you earlier, but I can tell the world on this. Like, I mean, the days that I go home at 4, like, unless it's something very, very significant, like I clock out at 4 and that's it.
Yeah.
You know. So that's something that, you know, 2 or 3 days a week has been really nice.
It's
cool.
It's awesome.
So yeah, it's fun.
Gotta take care of you.
Yeah. And have a small child, you know, hit me and spit up on me and stuff.
I know.
So
it's
good times.
It's great.
Okay, so in today's market, is there anything else that you think that agents should be doing? Like all of that's kind of like the mindset stuff is great, right? Like, because I think you do the best foundation. But as far as like real estate skills, like, is there anything else that you think is I don't want to say hack, because there's hard work is the hack,
Right.
But like, is there any other thing that you've been really high on lately?
Yeah, I think what's been helpful for us is role playing. And I have to tell you, before I started Tom Ferry, I was not into role playing. And in fact, there's a video somewhere, Jen probably has it, of me role playing with Doug Edgerton. He was my first coach. And it was like, you would have thought I'd never sold a house in my life. It was so terrible. I'll never forget it. But with our team, once a week, we do role playing. We do role playing at our meetings, but we also have a special role play class that we're doing.
Yeah.
And I really feel like the agents have gotten a lot from it. I think negotiation skills are going to be super important.
Huge.
And I think the objections that we're seeing are very different than what people saw last year or the year before, or even 5 years ago. So I think just working through all of those objections and having somebody else that you can ping off of has been just great.
Well, and just, I mean, in today's market where things are today, like with interest rates, and you're talking to a seller that they have a 2.5% interest rate, they're like, I'm not going to sell my home. Like,
Right.
I really don't have much. I'm like, I
agree.
I wouldn't either. Right?
I know, right.
So can we free up money? Are you buying? What are you doing? You know, I don't know about you, but a lot of our listings have been like life changes,
Yeah.
right? Like most people that I know right now, or most of my clients right now, are keeping their home as a rental, or like they are getting divorced, they have, you know, too many children, they're, you know, empty nesters, and it's a completely empty house. Like it's not just like
job change, whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, role play is definitely key for sure.
I think just talking it through, and if you're an agent by yourself, like getting on a mastermind or getting a group together, in this market, I think you have to have skills. I don't think it's something that you can just wing. I think you actually have to be able to have valuable talking skills with points, negotiations skills to get through what's coming.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a lot of things, like of the gratitudes of you guys get together, you're making calls, you're doing these things. Is the team in office, or what is like the typical day for an agent on your team look like?
Sure. Monday we have meetings, so typically there's lots of people in the office in Monday, and then throughout the week we have agents come and go.
Yeah.
So me, the rest of my leadership team, we're there every single day from usually 9 to 3:30ish, give or take. But yeah, people are coming into the office. It's very fluid, in and out. They know they can always get a hold of us, or somebody else is usually there too.
Yeah. But you have I guess the biggest thing is the team meeting every week. You have everyone in office for that.
Right. And then on Wednesdays, we've got the role play that we do.
Yeah.
And then we have a couple other meetings kind of sprinkled throughout. We've got mentors. Our mentors have meetings once a week as well. So we've got people coming in pretty much every day.
Well, and you kind of just answered my next question, but as you scale a team to the point where you are now, clearly, like, you're not the one person anymore, right? You have to have other people doing things. And so you have mentors for agents on the team.
Right. So we divided everything. When we hit that like 20 mark, we actually went to a pod system.
Okay.
So we've got 4 pods right now. The team lead on that is typically somebody that's not necessarily the top producer, but somebody that has a passion for learning and teaching.
Yeah.
And so they are responsible for the agents that are under them. They have their own Slack channel. They know to go to their pod leader first. If their pod leader can't answer it, then obviously they come to us. But typically it's their little pod. And so we run contests and have fun things with that too.
That's cool.
It's been a really great implementation for the I Got a Minutes.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And it's also nice too because they have somebody to grasp onto. Because when you come into a team and you've got 30 to 35 agents, it's very intimidating. So if they're in a pod, at least they know they've got their little people that they can talk to.
Yeah. Well, and so when you bring on new agents, do you bring them on in groups, or do you have specific days of the week that they start or anything like that?
We've tried to do that,
Yeah.
and we just haven't been able to implement it, to be honest. So they just, when we hire them, we start them.
Well, but then they start in a pod,
They
right?
do,
So if that's a pod, you said 30-ish agents, so if that's a pot of 5 to 10-ish people, give or
Right.
take, my math isn't great, clearly. But, if then that's a little bit easier to acclimate into than
Right.
30 right off the bat.
Yeah, and that's
So,
exactly what we thought too, is if you're new or coming to our group, at least you've got those people to connect with.
Yeah.
What we were seeing is they would walk into this room, it would be pretty scary. It took them longer to get acclimated, and so at least the pod leader is, putting them under their wing.
For sure.
Yeah.
Have you found, I doubt you've hired every single neighbor, so have you found any sources or places that have been good for like hiring more agents?
We typically hire people that have worked with our other agents.
Okay, like across the deal?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have a program within our agents that they refer, they get, certain little incentive. As far as my leadership team goes, it's pretty interesting because I think we've done very well with hiring people that have not been in the real estate business at all. Like my director of ops, who's fabulous, worked for KDISD. She worked as the person in charge of doing all the lunches for all the schools. So she was in that kind of position, but she didn't know anything about real estate. And that has been a really great hire for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that business is business, right? And so if you find the right people that are the right culture fit and see your vision, right, and see the vision for the business, then it doesn't necessarily mean they need to have real estate experience.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah. I like the other side of the deal thing too.
Yeah.
Finding agents that you see how they work under pressure and things like that is really good.
Well, and I think if another agent on the team is actually saying, hey, yes, this person would be good, that's a pretty good stamp of approval, because typically they've seen the good, bad, and ugly, and they've worked with them, and they've also are okay enough for them to be working side by side with them, which is a different story, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Definitely. Okay, so I ask everyone the same question. This is the one question I ask everyone on the podcast, and it is, if it was your last meal on earth, what would you be eating?
Oh, that's an easy one. It would be a pizza. I love pizza. So I like a thin crust pizza with tomatoes, onions, and jalapenos, and a glass of red wine.
That was a very quick answer.
Oh, yeah, it's like...
That's like your go-to.
Yeah, that would be it.
I like it. Do you have a specific pizza place you go to?
No. I just like the really thin one. So just depends on where we go, but I'm not very picky on that.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, if someone doesn't follow you on social, where's the best place for them to find you?
Instagram, the Jamie McMartin group would be perfect.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and I appreciate you.
You too. Thanks.